All right, this basic lab comes from the How to Extract DNA from Anything Living online handout. So I'm going to show you some tips and tweaks on how to make this work best for you in your kitchen. You, again, can use anything living, but I highly suggest strawberries. They have a lot of DNA and a lot of seeds, and so it's a really easy thing to get this time of year as well. So you're going to take a cup of strawberries and a third cup of water. The reason for that is these are dehydrated peas, so you need more water to thin it out. You don't need a lot of water in strawberries because they already have a large water content. So just a little bit of water, a lot of strawberries, about the same amount of salt. You can go higher than this. More salt is better than less salt when you're looking at the 1/8 of a teaspoon amount there. All right, so the next step is to add soap, and the instructions here are strain the pea solution. You don't have to strain it. You can strain it, that's just an extra step. It'll remove some of the pieces of the cells, but again, you don't have to do that. What is important is that you're allowing the soap to sit for at least 10 minutes. You could let it sit overnight. You can't go really too long with the detergent solution there. What you're doing is giving that soap time to break apart the cell membrane and the nuclear membrane. So that's what the soap is doing. It's slipping into the cell membrane and emulsifying it, just breaking it apart and doing the same thing to the nuclear membrane. When these two things break apart, then the DNA can escape from the cell and it will float to the top of the solution. The next step is an optional step, and in fact, I recommend that you don't do this at home because it can mess up your whole experiment. So what this does is it breaks apart the proteins that are coiling up the DNA. So you can spoil your DNA better, but you also risk just breaking apart your DNA so much that it's going to be hard to see and hard to collect at all. So if you're gonna do this, separate your strawberry solution out in half and try half of it with the meat tenderizer and half of it without the meat tenderizer. And when you do add meat tenderizer, just add a tiny, tiny bit. Okay, and I'll explain to you what that'll look like in just a minute. All right, so your final step, you're probably not going to have a test tube. If you do, awesome. If not, you can do this in a clear glass. The more narrow, the better. But really, as long as you've got some space on top, then you can do that. It's really just about you having to not use as much alcohol. A couple of tips for using the alcohol is that if you put it in the freezer and you get it cold beforehand, it'll work a lot better. If you use 91% alcohol, that's going to be better than using the 60 is not going to work, or the 70% that you can also buy at the store. So look at your alcohol label and see what percent alcohol your isopropyl alcohol is. And if you don't have a dropper, try to just make sure that you're pouring the alcohol really slowly down the side of your container, because the goal is to layer that alcohol on top of your solution. So the better layering you get, the better DNA extraction you're going to get. Once you layer the alcohol on top, because alcohol is going to be less dense than your strawberry solution, your DNA is going to be even less dense than that. So after you give it a few minutes, you should see kind of some bubbles, and then you'll start to see some white stuff float to the top. Again, if you don't use the meat tenderizer, yours is not going to look so stringy. It'll look clumpy, but it'll definitely be something that you can see really easily and that'll rise to the top. If you do add the meat tenderizer, then it should be stringier looking, kind of more like snot, and you may or may not be able to actually pull it out of the solution. So either way, it'll work, and then stay tuned and I'll show you what our extraction looks like from my kitchen.